Hello there. I'm a guest speaker. I guess I better use bigger words than that. For a professor, I better say a guest lecturer on this show, I Go Travel with Don Barnett. I've even got the professor hat and the eyeglasses to go with it. And we're going to look at a little bit of a test here, a little bit of fun. You'll learn something. I'll show you some pictures about each of the items. But it's a multiple choice test, a little multi-choice. And if you want more information on it, just go to the home page. Google I Go Travel with DonBarnett.com. All lowercase, no spaces, and don't forget to put in the .com, and that'll take you right to the home page where you can pick and choose from maybe 50 or 60 travelogues that I've made over the last little bit of time. And since I'm doing this professor thing and doing a test, you can call me sir, or call me professor, or you could call me your Majesty. But perhaps you could call me O Learned One. And if you want to become an O Learned One, you can do that. Let's take a look at these multi-choice questions and we'll learn as we go along. So this is the O Learned One. Let's take a look at the first question. Let's try this first question. In which city is the Space Needle located? Is it A, Calgary, Alberta, B, Seattle, Washington, or C, Phoenix, Arizona? We're looking for the Space Needle. While you're thinking about the answer, here is a photograph of it. In which city is this in? I know I'm not giving you a lot of time to think about this, but in which city is the Space Needle located? It is B, in Seattle, Washington. It was built as part of the World's Fair when they had it in Seattle. Let's try another question. Which group of people is defined as one of Canada's official Aboriginal or Indigenous people? Indigenous people, is it the Navajo, Latino, or Métis? This belt-type scarf thing around this lady's waist is called a sash, S-A-S-H, and it is part of the traditional dress of these people. And the answer is C, the Métis. They are one of Canada's official Aboriginal or Indigenous people, along with the Inuit and the First Nations people. But the Métis is one of the official groups. We're down in Texas and into history for this question. What was the battle cry that helped Sam Houston's Texas Army defeat Santa Anna's Mexican army? Was it A, when they shouted the soldiers charging, "Remember Texas"? Or was it B, "Remember Goliad"? Or was it C, "Remember Santa Anna"? What was the battle cry that really helped out the Texas Army? You might have heard that one of the battle cries that was famous that helped them was called "Remember the Alamo." And but there was a second one that was really just as important, maybe even more important, in the Texans' battle with the Mexicans. The battle cry that really helped the Texas Army was B, "Remember Goliad." And if you've seen one of those travelogues that I made of Texas, you'll understand why Goliad was such an important battle cry. We're back into the desert of Arizona, the Sonoran Desert. Which animal inhabits the Sonoran Desert of Arizona and Mexico? Is it the bighorn sheep, the mountain goat, or elk? All right, let's think about that. In case you're not familiar with these animals, I'll show you a photograph of each one of them. First one is the bighorn sheep here. This animal here is the mountain goat. And this one is the elk. So which one is in the Sonoran Desert? The answer is A, the bighorn sheep. The mountain goat is more of a high mountain animal, and an elk is in the prairies and in forested areas. But the bighorn sheep, I talked about them in one of those travelogues. They're particularly adapted to the desert conditions. They can go a long time, almost like a camel, without much water. We are looking for a city here. Which city is a major U.S. oil refinery port? Here it is here. I'll give you a clue. It is on the Gulf Coast. And I'll give you another hint. It is in the state of Texas. What is the city? And the city here with the big oil refineries is the city of Houston, Texas. Now we are looking for the largest entertainment area in Las Vegas. There's several different areas within the city, but the biggest one and the most popular one, is it A, the Strip, B, Fremont Street, or C, is it Bourbon Street? This is part of the downtown. Look at the size of that red roller coaster in the background. It's alive and buzzing, this part of Las Vegas. And what one are we looking at? Are we looking at the Strip, at Fremont Street, or is it Bourbon Street? And in Las Vegas, it is the Strip. Fremont Street, B here, is the old entertainment quarters. That's still popular, but nothing compared to the Strip. And C, Bourbon Street, is a main entertainment street in New Orleans. Seeing the travelogue on Las Vegas and the Strip would certainly have helped in the last question. And seeing one of the Alaska travelogues would really help with this question here. We're talking about the law of the sea and how it changed. The law of the sea changed after the SS Sophia sank. A big shipwreck. Who now makes the decision to evacuate the ship? Is it A, the captain? Is it B, it is not the captain? Or C, the captain must consult rescue crews before making the final decision? This major change in the law of the sea occurred after the Canadian Pacific ship, the SS Sophia, shipwrecked on the Alaska coast in the Alaska Panhandle, and I made a travelogue on that. Okay, is it the captain can make the decision? He can't make the decision? Or he can make it only after consulting the rescue crews? This is not the Sophia that sank. No one could take a picture of it. But this was another ship similar in size that crashed up on the rocks on a reef in the Alaska Panhandle. And the Sophia, though, slid off the rocks and all were lost. Again, it had a major change in the law of the sea. Here is the answer. It's B. The captain cannot make the decision to abandon ship, period. Before the shipwreck, the captain could do that, and the captain did make that decision, kept everybody on board, said wait till the storm gets over, and overnight the ship went down, and they changed the decision. And the captain, looking at C here, the captain must consult rescue crews before making the final decision. No, the captain is out of sole ability to make a decision about his crew and passengers. It's now done under consultation with the rescue crew, and it's really the rescue crew and the Coast Guard that makes the decision, no longer the captain of the ship. Let's take a look at this one. Which is a major agriculture crop of Texas? Is it cotton? Is it date palms? Or is it C, wheat? What do you think? Here's some cotton that's growing. The plants are not that tall a plant, and picking them by hand that many slaves in historic times had to do, bending down a very tough job on the back. Here is the answer here. It is A, cotton, major crop in Texas. And Texas joined initially the United States, joined the Union as a slave state because there were a lot of slaves in Texas because of the huge cotton production there. Let's keep a rolling. We're talking about wildlife here. Which bird is unique to the Sonoran Desert of Mexico and Arizona? Is it those big condor vultures? Or is it B, the American or Mexican eagle? Or is it C, the roadrunner? I will show you a photograph of each of these birds just to help you out. This is the American eagle or the Mexican eagle. This is one of the big vultures, the condor vultures, but it's not an actual condor, it's just another vulture. I did not have a photograph of the condor, but the condor is a big bird of the desert area. And this is C, a little road runner that you see running around once in a while. They're very agile and mobile with their legs. And as it says here, the answer is C, the road runner. The roadrunner is unique. The other birds are down in the desert, the Sonoran Desert area, but they are elsewhere as well. However, the roadrunner is unique to the Sonoran Desert. All right, how are you making out? I have got a few more multi-choice questions. Let's look at a few more, and I'll keep showing you some pictures of some of the items that we go through. Here we go. We talked about one of the biggest ranches in the world that's in Texas, the King Ranch. And here's a question. Which are the main products of the King Ranch in Texas? Even if you haven't seen that travelogue, you might do some thinking and get the right answer anyhow. Would the main product be A, cattle and sheep, B, cattle and racehorses, or C, cattle and alfalfa hay? What would make the most sense to you? The W here in the middle of this sign is one of the original brands of the King Ranch, and they have a visitor center there, and it's still a big operation. So the question is, what was their main product? Cattle and sheep, or cattle and racehorses, or cattle and alfalfa hay? Here is the answer. It's B, cattle and racehorses. And they had some famous racehorses there that they ran in the big races like the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes and won some of them. And if the horses died, they buried them right at home on the ranch. And they're big cattle producers too. If you saw that travelogue, they developed a particular breed of cattle, but they've been in the cattle business for many years. We are heading north with this question. Why was the Alaska Highway originally built? What was its original purpose? Was it because of a fear of a Japanese invasion? Or was it B, the fear of a Russian invasion? Or was it C, to get access to northern communities and resources? Which one of these alternatives really makes the most sense? This is a photograph of the Alaska Highway in one of the more remote areas. Today it's a 2-lane paved road, very good in most places. The days of potholes and dust and wood logs sticking out of the middle of the road in muddy spots is all over. Why was the road originally built? Well, it made the most sense back in those days. World War II, 1942, 1943, the Americans were particularly afraid of a Japanese invasion and felt that they had to get access and resources into the North Country. So they built the highway. So it was a fear of a Japanese invasion that was the original reason for building the highway. Let's keep a moving. We're on a roll now. Okay, where is Notre Dame Cathedral located? Is it in Houston, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, or Montreal, Quebec? And we made a travelogue on this grand building. This is a photograph I took inside the building. It is indeed a grand building that receives thousands of visitors every year. Again, what city is it in? And the answer is C. It's in Montreal, in the province of Quebec in Canada. If you ever go there, be sure and stop in. All right, with this question, we're headed back into the North Country again. Who controlled the lawlessness during the Klondike gold rush? And everybody was mad for gold. Was it the Northwest Mounted Police? Or B, was it the Royal Canadian Mounted Police? Or C, was it the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation? It was one of these organizations that really kept the lid on too much lawlessness going on during the mad rush for gold in about 1898. The guy standing on the left is one of the police officers in charge of the law during the Klondike Gold Rush. And here is the answer. It's A. It was the Northwest Mounted Police, a Canadian national police organization that looked after the legal ends of things during that time. B, the RCMP, that is the current name of the Northwest Mounted Police. It's now called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And C, of course, is a U.S. organization, but the Klondike Gold Rush occurred in Canada, and so it was the Canadian law enforcement people that looked after the law. We've talked about the Sonoran Desert quite a bit in both the travelogues and in this particular travelogue. Okay, where is it located? A, mostly in the state of Sonora, Mexico. B, from Mexico to Palm Springs. Or is it C, from Texas right across to the Baja, which is near the Pacific Ocean? What's the general location of this very well-known desert? This is a photograph that I took in the desert. It's not sand and sand dunes like, say, the Sahara Desert is, but it's a high desert with a lot of growth, cactus mainly, dry type of country. All right, where is the general location of it? The Sonoran Desert certainly is in the state of Sonora, Mexico, but it runs from northern Mexico as far north as around Palm Springs in California. It's a large area, and it runs most of the width of the state of Arizona. Of course, number C there, from Texas to the Baja, no, that's too far. There's too many other kinds of geographic formations like mountains and beachfront once you get into the Texas area. Just while we're on the Sonoran Desert, I've got another question here for you. Where does the Saguaro Cactus mainly grow? And I'll show you pictures of the Saguaro Cactus. It's a famous cactus. But does it grow in the Sonoran Desert? Does it grow in northern Mexico, Arizona, and the Baja, that whole southwest area? Or is it C, from southern Texas to California? All right, where does that saguaro? Let's take a look at a saguaro cactus. I showed this photograph in one of the travelogues on the Sonoran Desert of this friend of mine who always liked to hug the cactus. He must have had a steel chest because those sharp spinies are awfully sharp and painful. But that's the nature or the looks of a saguaro cactus, made very famous in many old Western movies, and it's a very typical, characteristically photograph of a cactus. Again, where does it grow? The Saguaro cactus mainly grows in the Sonoran Desert. You could say it entirely grows there, really nowhere else. It does not, it grows in northern Mexico under B there, but it does not grow in the Baja to any extent. And number C, it does not grow in southern Texas or not very much in California either. It's a Sonoran Desert plant. We are back into the Yukon country and the Klondike Gold Rush. Here we are. Which law enforcement officer controlled lawlessness during the Klondike Gold Rush? Now we're looking for a policeman of some sort or a law guy. Was it a fellow by the name of Sam Steele? Was it Sam Houston? Or was it Kit Carson? All right, what would your guess be? This is a photograph of a guy killed in an avalanche. And the police had all kinds of work to do during the Klondike Gold Rush. So was it Sam Steele or Sam Houston or Kit Carson who really looked after the law? It was the Northwest Mounted Policeman Sam Steele, who was really probably one of the more well-known Canadian historical figures. We will do a couple of more questions and then call it quits. Here's one of them. Which Indians played a major role in the history of Arizona? All right, you snowbirds. Was it the Blackfoot and the Cree? Or was it B, the Sioux and the Iroquois? Or C, was it the Apache and the Navajo? If you have looked at some of those travelogues, I've mentioned these groups in them. This is just one of the indigenous people that I took a photograph somewhere along the line in Arizona. So what are the indigenous groups of Arizona? And the answer here, of course, is the Apache and the Navajo. And the Blackfoot and the Cree are Canadian indigenous groups, and the Sioux is a large U.S. indigenous group on the Great Plains of the western United States, and the Iroquois are an indigenous group from the St. Lawrence River region in eastern Canada. Let's make the last question on the Alaska Highway. Who actually built the Alaska Highway? Was it A, Canada, B, the U.S., or C, was it a joint U.S.-Canadian effort? What do you say? Here is a photo of some workers on the highway. Notice it's summertime, and that fella looking at us is wearing a mosquito mask over his head because during the summer, the mosquitoes in the North Country were fearsome. All right, so who built the Alaska Highway? Canada or the U.S., or was it a joint effort? Remember, we're talking 1942, World War II days. And the answer is B. It was built entirely by the USA. A lot of it was on Canadian soil, but the Canadians were slow to the draw. There were an estimated about 10,000 U.S. soldiers already in Alaska and the Yukon by the time the Canadian government got around to saying, well, okay, it's a good deal, and they agreed to it. The Canadian government agreed to the building of the highway if A, the U.S. built it all, and Canada had to supply no money whatsoever, and they did not have to provide any workers in the construction of it. But the U.S. was in such a panic over a fear of a Japanese invasion that they said, fine, we'll agree to that, let's build the highway. And within a year, approximately, the highway was built. Okay, I hope you learned a little bit and had a little bit of fun. It's always some fun when you learn something. In the meantime, I guess we're heading down the trail, and this is the old learned one. on the show I Go Travel with Don Barnett. Adios for now.